Morning all. Alright, so we just have two games tonight, so the preview and the news of the day video go together as one, of course. We're going to start with what's at the bottom of the board. This is what I was waiting for. So, Department of Player Safety comes out with a fine this morning, and I'm like, that's not it. I know there's a suspension coming. There has to be. So, Mangiapane of the Calgary Flames has a hearing today for the cross-check on McCann. It was... I still don't understand what caused it. But I understand that the Flames are a very frustrated team right now. It's just you don't do that. So cross-checked him in the back of the neck. It was 5. They threw him out. Now, because they threw him out, that may affect how many games he gets. Because we've heard from player safety before that when you miss most of the game because you're booted out of the game, they kind of count that as being one game of a suspension. And I know we as fans may disagree with that, but they do view it that way. So I would think 3 games for Mangiapane, if you look at it that way. Like, I look at the McAvoy one, right? The McAvoy suspension for 4 games, which, again, I think is warranted, and I think they need to start suspending players for longer to maybe get some of this out of the game. So, hopefully for Mangiapane, it's not just a game. But again, I understand it was one of those heat-of-the-moment things. It wasn't premeditated, but it was a reckless play. So, let me know in the comments section below how many games you think Mangiapane gets. Once again, once it's a hearing, it's always a suspension. There's only one exception over the last 3 years where it wasn't a suspension. So, Barzal was fined as well for a high stick on D'Angelo. We won't get into how much because it's the maximum allowable under the collective bargaining agreement. But yeah, so Barzal's been fined for a high stick, which means he's on the radar, which means keep your stick down next time out. It's probably going to be a suspension. So that way, the fine's too low. Everybody gets mad about the fine not being low enough or not being high enough. And then for anybody who wanted a suspension, they're not happy there either. So that way, everybody's happy. 2 wrongs make a right. Anyways, Brady Tkachuk, after last night's game, he really showed his captaincy chops last night. After the game, he said they have no quit. He also acknowledged the negativity around the team right now and saying they need to fight through it. Defended his coach as well. There's a lot of calls for DJ Smith. And again, you have a new owner. He just fired the GM. The odds of the coach sticking around much longer, they're not very good. And I think the players know this. And then you have to look around that locker room and realize, hey, our play cost a man his job. And we have seen, for as long as I've watched hockey, I know hockey players have felt terrible about their play affecting the employment of their coach. So, it's not a great start for the Sens. They're 4-6. As I mentioned in last night's review video, it is a very home-heavy schedule to start the season, and then the schedule gets much more difficult. So if they're losing all these games at home, it doesn't bode well for when they go out on the road later on this year. Johnny Gaudreau. So if you're a Columbus fan, Johnny Gaudreau has been underwhelming thus far. Basically, if you hadn't watched Gaudreau in Calgary and you just watched him in Columbus, you'd be forgiven for thinking, I don't know what all the hype was about. Because Johnny Gaudreau has not looked the same in Columbus as he did in Calgary. And last year, he had a rough year, and this year it's kind of worse. So what's interesting to me is that you have Gaudreau go from Calgary to Columbus. Hasn't worked out. You have Huberdeau go from Florida to Calgary. That really hasn't worked out. Well, why not just trade them both? Why not just have Gaudreau go to Calgary? And I know there's no movement clauses, but I just look at this and I think, wouldn't that be an easy way to just trade Huberdeau for Gaudreau and be done with it? Again, I know Gaudreau chose to play in Columbus. He has a no movement clause, and that's part of the problem if you're Columbus. So his cap hits $9.75 million. That's until 2029, and there's a full no movement clause in there, meaning they can't trade him, and they can't even send him to the minors. They can't even do anything with him that way. No movement means he is on your roster, the end. So Gaudreau gets benched for the final 16:07 last night. Coach after saying, yeah, I wasn't happy with his game, and I can't argue with that. One thing that I've noticed, and both with Gaudreau and Huberdeau, is they're not very prominent in these games. You would expect them to be far more prominent and getting a lot more high danger chances than what they're getting so far. So we'll see if that benching gets Gaudreau going. Skinner or Campbell? So coming out of yesterday with the Oilers, of course, there's just chaos right now with both Alberta-based teams. Jack Campbell, rough start for him yesterday, but Skinner's numbers haven't been good either. So the question becomes one of, okay, so are they going to go with Skinner or Campbell? Because here's the thing. Campbell's named the starter. Within that first game, he's the starter. Skinner takes over. A few games later, Campbell has a really, really, really good game against Nashville. But then Skinner's back in the net not too long after that because Campbell's follow-up wasn't as impressive. And then yesterday against Nashville, Campbell didn't look great. So you're left in a position where neither of the goaltenders have taken the starting reins. We're 10 games into the season. We've already seen, 3 different conversation changes when it comes to the goaltending. They trust Campbell. They trust Skinner. Well, they're going to give Campbell, you know what? Maybe we'll just ride Skinner for a while. It's kind of circular, and it might be kind of tough for Oiler fans right now to figure out how they're going to dig their way out of this. There's still a good team there, but it's just one of those times where sometimes you have a good team and you just don't win. It does happen. It's something that, I could look back through old rosters and find some pretty good rosters for teams that had bad years and say, can you believe? Late 90s, the Canucks, there were a lot of Hall of Fame talents and superstar talents. The overall team wasn't any good, but you still had stars there, so there's that. But yeah, so let me know your thoughts. Can the Oilers pull themselves out of this, or are we looking at a position now where the coach is in trouble? Can Holland make a trade? In this day and age, because of the salary cap being as it is, can you even make a deal if you want to? Ovechkin. I want to talk a little bit about Ovechkin here. So 2 goals for Ovechkin. He's on pace for 16 or 17. It's a 82 game season. So I'll say 17. 16 on the board, but I'll just say 17. That's not enough. What's interesting with Ovechkin is he suddenly looks his age. Ovechkin, we have marveled for the last 4 years about how he stays young and he looks like he can do this forever. The reality is nobody does this forever. And it feels like Ovechkin all of a sudden got old. It's the weirdest thing. And I don't know. We could say, well, maybe it's traced to Backstrom getting hurt, but he was still pretty good last year. He was still a 40 goal scorer. Notable last year was he tailed off towards the end of the season, and so he went from a 50 goal pace. He petered out. I don't know. Maybe he's dealing with an injury, but at this point, it looks like Gretzky's goal record is pretty bloody safe. It is just all of a sudden Ovechkin, it's not there. And I don't get that feeling with the Capitals that, Ovi's going to pot a couple here. Here it comes. His shot's just a little bit off. It's just he is still Ovechkin. He still may very well turn this around and go on a bit of a run. But the further we get into the season, the less likely that gets. So let me know your thoughts. And let's get to the 2-game preview for tonight. 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. We've got the New Jersey Devils and the Chicago Blackhawks. First of 2 meetings here. They'll meet again January the 5th. Hawks fans who paid for tickets, sorry, you will not get to see Jack Hughes versus Connor Bedard. And I agree, that's criminal. Apparently Hughes, it's not a worst case scenario with Hughes, but we don't know how long he's going to be out. So apparently it may not be that long, but he ain't playing tonight. So for New Jersey, they're 6-3-1 to start the season. While Hughes is out, they're going to need other guys to step up. Holtz has looked good lately, 3 goals, 2 assists for him. They could use some goals from Meyer. Meyer has 2 goals, 6 assists, 8 points thus far this season. On the Chicago side, they are 4-6, and they're playing like a team that has no pressure because they have no pressure. There's none. Kurashev, in the 4 games since he has returned, he's helped. 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points. Taylor Hall, he got a goal in his return last night, so now in 6 games he has a goal with 2 assists for 3 points. The other game tonight starts at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. That's the Vegas Golden Knights and the Anaheim Ducks. Vegas is 11-0-1. Anaheim is 6-4. Anybody want to bet against Vegas ending the 5-game winning streak of Anaheim? I could try. And I think that would be insane if Anaheim gets to a 6-game winning streak and does it at the expense of Vegas. Now, working in Anaheim's favor is Vegas is on the second half of a back-to-back. But they are 11-0-1. This is the second of 4 meetings. Vegas has already beaten Anaheim once this year. That was a 4-1 win on October the 14th. They'll meet again December 27th as well as April the 18th. Mark Stone, 4 goals, 8 assists, 12 points. He had 2 shorthanded goals last night. He really is one of the best defensive forwards in the game. William Karlsson, 6 goals, 9 assists, 15 points. I love Wild Bill, and I think that the point per game that he's producing right now, above point per game actually, I do think it's sustainable. He's really on a run right now. For Anaheim to get to 6-4, it's amazing they've done so without Trevor Zegras. He only has 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points. And he's generating opportunities, but at some point in time, something has to change. Something has to happen. And for McTavish, 5 goals, 7 assists, 12 points. McTavish is producing the points we expected from Zegras. So Mason McTavish has been fantastic. And I'm sure Anaheim fans are quite happy with his play, with Terry's, and with others. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.